Hey, what's up, OV Tribe? If you're like me, after this COVID quarantine stuff has been starting to lift, the first thing you want to do is go on a secluded hike. Not necessarily run back to the bowling alley or the gym or the movie theater, but instead get out there, get away from people, but also get into the sunlight and just get outdoors, breathe that fresh air. So in this video, we're going to talk you through exactly how we found a new hike, planned the new hike, and executed that hike. So the very most important thing to start with when you're doing this is to figure out your parameters. And so for us, that was we wanted it to be secluded, we wanted it to be new. We also wanted it to be lower elevation and warmer, just because we're coming out of these cold months. And last, we wanted to be within 2 hours of our office and be able to drive there within 2 hours. So with those parameters in place, the first thing we did was we hopped on the computer and started researching. Now, for many of you, it's going to be very tempting to jump on here and just search, hikes near me, or hikes near Southern Utah, or hikes near whatever place you're thinking about going. And that's not the route that I would personally suggest. Instead, what I like to do is I like to go to AllTrails.com or a feature or a website similar to this, but I really like AllTrails. That's one I'll be using in here. And I'm just going to type in St. George. And I'm going to, knowing that that's kind of the type of terrain that we're going to be wanting to go into. Now, it's going to pull up a lot of trails and a lot of things like that. But what I'm looking for is this map feature right here. So when I click into this map feature, it's going to pull up St. George and all of these different hikes right around that area. But as this starts to load, you'll see it's right on St. George, and anything that's in this window right now is just too close to St. George, a bigger city in the area. So I'm actually going to zoom out and look for things on the outside perimeters of St. George. So I'm kind of going to be looking right, and I'm going to be looking left here. Now, I did look at some of these hikes out here. This is an area I'd never been before, but as I looked into those are actually some OHV trails, and I ended up just not going that route. But as I started to look over this direction, you'll see that there's Springdale. Well, Springdale's right outside of Zion. They have some really cool hikes out there, but it's very busy. But right here, you'll see this number 5. This is an area I hadn't been. I can see it's really cool terrain. Having driven through this area, I know there's some big old cliffs there that look super interesting. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to look at some of these hikes. Now, right here, we've got this White Domes via Water Canyon. So this is the Water Canyon Trail and the Beehive. And if I zoom out just a little bit more, I'll be able to see kind of where these hikes are going. When I highlight them, it shows me where some of these are at. But it looks like a lot of these are coming up on top to these trails. This looks like it's the Beehive. And then over here, this one's coming straight out of this canyon and up onto the top. When I look up on top, this looks really cool because it's a plateau. I'll be able to come and look off these massive cliffs on both sides, look back towards Zion. It looks really, really cool, but I don't see it in AllTrails. I don't see that trail plan. So I'm just gonna go and Google now that I have a specific trail in mind, and see what I can find. So I'm gonna jump over here to Google. I type in Water Canyon to Canaan Mountain. That is, in fact, the name of this mountain, which if I looked a little bit closer, I'd be able to find that. But I jump on here, I just Google search, I want to hike up through Water Canyon, go on to Canaan Mountain, or through this Squirrel Canyon apparently over here. But since I'm trying to get over here, I'm going to go through the Water Canyon route. And very first thing is I've found some blogs here. So I'm going to open up this first one. This one was very informative for me. So right here, you can see that this person went from Water Canyon up onto Canaan Mountain. I just kind of want to browse through really quickly. I found his map. His map is very informative of the route that he took. He came and started right there at the trailhead, went straight up on top, went over to these cliffs, and came into this area. So exactly what we're looking for. I actually downloaded this map to have with me, and then I read through his dialogue. I looked through his photos, and he was basically talking about water, he's talking about difficulty, he's talking about how beautiful it is, and it looks like it's the perfect hike for us. Now, because nothing's a guarantee, I don't want to plan on water. He says there's likely water on top, but I'm probably going to be packing up to 4 liters out of this canyon to make sure I have enough water in the desert on these hot days. But if I start to see water up on top, I'll be able to leave that. That's one of the main things I like to look for in a trip, is to make sure I've got my water planned. The next thing is, he says it's hard, but he doesn't give me any distances, miles, etc. So I really want to have that. So I'm going to come back over here to AllTrails, and I'm going to go to the maps, the create a map feature here. And I'm going to draw out this map. so that I can get exact distances. And what I love about AllTrails is it also gives me the elevation. So I'm just gonna zoom in here, find my trail. Just gonna take me a second apparently. And then from there, we'll be able to actually draw this straight on there. All right, so you can see here, this is where I'm gonna be starting, and this is probably where we're gonna be camping relatively. And I can come over here and I can hit this draw route. And I know that we can start from that lake and go all the way up and onto here. And look, this is what's so cool is when you use this route drawing feature, it just maps and tracks all of that. It shows me that right here, this is a 6.12 mile single way with 2,600 feet of elevation gain. It's massive. You can see down here the topography lay, just some real big climbs. But once we get up on top, it's pretty flat, which is really, really nice, but it's gonna be steep and gnarly to get started. What's really cool is I can hit this out and back feature because that's exactly what we'll be doing. And now I've got a full distance and full elevation. On the way out, obviously we'll be going down a lot, but there's still a little bit of gain in a few certain spots. Now I've got all of this. This is super, super informative. And so now I can simply save this map and I can download this map. Now, if I didn't have AllTrails Pro, I would just download this map and put it on my phone and then use a different, maybe free topography map to align on top and make sure that I'm wayfinding correctly. However, I do have AllTrails Pro, so I'm just gonna download this straight onto my phone so I can use it in the offline version. I personally also use a Garmin InReach for safety features, but this is a great way to have access to your maps and things offline if you do the AllTrails Pro. I believe it's about $30 a year. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But the last thing that I really like to do before I go out on any hikes is I like to look at this in Google Earth. It's one of my favorite things to do. You can draw routes in here, all sorts of things, but we'll just zoom in here and we'll just show you the route because some of you are probably thinking, man, I can't read topography maps. I don't know elevation. That's really tough for me. It's really confusing, but it might be a little bit more visual. So I'm gonna zoom right in here. This is where we're gonna start the hike. And then I'm just gonna look up. And now you're gonna be able to see more of what we're doing. So we're gonna be hiking up this slot canyon, and then we're gonna be jumping up all the way on top of here, hiking across the top over to these massive cliffs, looking off these massive cliffs and hiking along them until we eventually get over here and camp somewhere right here by this side of the cliffs. I really like Google Earth because it really enables you to visually see things and be able to look back at your maps and help you understand what you're looking at on some of these maps, especially if you're not very experienced with the topo maps. Anyways, so I just wanted to show you this. Inside of here, you can do things like draw. So I could pop this open and I could draw the route similar to this, and it's going to give me, you know, lengths. It doesn't give me altitude, at least I don't believe it does, but it can give you things like length. So this is just a really helpful feature. So we've got our trail all planned. I think that we've got everything mapped out. We've got the maps downloaded. We're ready to go. So let's take the information that we've pulled off the computer. Let's take it out to the trailhead and see how we did. All right, so we just got to the trailhead. I actually ended up using AllTrails to navigate to the trailhead. I kicked it into airplane mode and I left the GPS on, and we'll just start navigating up the canyon here and see how it goes. All right, so far so good. You can see back here where we've been hiking out of. So far the map has been nice to have, especially as we get out up on top. This is pretty primitive stuff. Sometimes your cairns are only these little tiny rock piles like that, and so it can be a little bit tougher to navigate, but our map's been doing great for us, and it's super helpful to have. So we'll keep going on, but so far the trail is probably better than we expected as far as just how much we're enjoying it. So it's been a good find so far. All right, so we're just headed back now from our camp up on top, and I just wanted to plug in and say how important it is that you guys make sure you get your maps downloaded or have some form of wayfinding via a GPS. It really is helpful. For instance, when we're coming across all of this up here, it's all slick rock sandstone, and it just doesn't have very many cairns. We just actually got back to this tiny little cairn right here. But because we have those GPS maps and be able to look at those, it's just super helpful to stay en route. Make sure you're not doing anything extra. But yeah, we've definitely struggled throughout this trip at certain times to be on any kind of a trail as we go across these big slick rocks and whatnot, but we're always able to re-navigate, get back on pace. So make sure you got good GPS. We're almost back to the truck, but I would say so far, I guess like it's been a success. We've planned it well enough. I think the planning went really well, so I think we're good. We're about back to the main trail, which will just be smooth sailing all the way out of here. So thanks for joining us. If you have questions on this stuff, make sure to leave comments on our YouTube channel or reach out to us at support@Revitals. We definitely love sharing this type of knowledge, so if you have more videos that you want us to do, let us know.